Hi everybody, my name is Roy Howitt from Medland, Spain. I'm the UK and Irish sales manager at Medland, Spain. And welcome to the sixth in our series of webinars, where today we're going to be looking at the area which is defined as the Costa Blanca North. If you view our previous webinars on YouTube, you know we've already covered the Costa Calida and the Costa Blanca South. So this is the natural third element for the area that we cover. In our Meet the Team series today, I'm joined by Tracy Wallace, who's one of our internal salespeople. Hi Tracy, how are we doing today?
Hi there, I'm fine, thank you. And hello to everybody, and thank you for joining our channel.
In these changing times, believe it or not, we don't actually get to see each other very much. Most of our staff work remotely. Therefore, rarely do we actually go into the office. So this is really one of the only times we want to talk to each other, apart from on the phone, of course, as well. Tracy, I've done 17 years now. I think you're coming up 14. So what have you done since you've been in Spain? What?
Oh, a couple of different things, actually. When I first came over, I put myself out for some charity work, and I was working with Jennifer Cunningham nurses, and did that for quite a few years, actually. Then decided that I wanted to go out and do something that I could actually have an effect on the end result, and again, make people happy. So here I am.
And how many years involved in property? Quite a few now, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh, it's got to be more than 10. Yeah, definitely. Yes.
And always in the same sort of role, always internally on the phone when people come in and finding people's dreams homes to start with?
Yep. Always on the telephone, and yeah, available in the office for clients that are actually here. And as you say, we get to see each other very rarely because you're always out and about with clients. And yeah, this is nice to see you, Roy.
Longest we spent together for ages. Just a quick thing in terms of why did you come to Spain and why this area specifically? Well, how did you select a property when you first?
I suppose it sounds very strange, but it came about by accident, I think. I bought a holiday apartment here many years ago, and I came to Costa Blanca because from the UK and flights just coming into Alicante airport, I could just like hop on a plane, come over for a weekend and go back again. And I started to stay just a little bit longer, and then decided, well, why don't I stay here all the time? Because it's where I'm happiest.
I know you had quite a senior career in retail, didn't you? With all the stuff that's going on in retail at the moment. I know they're very much your background.
Yes, not the same kind of environment and job that was there when I was around years ago. No, very different now. And obviously all the online business, you know, people don't necessarily have to go out to the high streets.
And you live at the moment down towards, I know that you moved away for a while. I know you're back now. You're living in the Costa Blanca South, same sort of area as me, down towards the beautiful beaches of La Mata.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah. Okay,
let's move on then. Let's go through the presentation on that today. Just before we move on, those of you who've seen me previously know that I love my virtual backgrounds. And today it's quite interesting. This week I've been down to a new development which is happening down in Alicante region on a golf course which has actually been established for the last 9 years, but doesn't have any properties until now. And it's Font del Joc, the double L in the last word there, which is actually the fountain of the wolf, I understand, or the font of the wolf. Interesting site because it's only about 15 minutes or so from Alicante Airport and close to Elche and Aspe. And it's really the opportunity there to get in at the ground floor level. We're not going to present it during this particular presentation, but they've just started building the apartments there. We'll have a show apartment at the end of January. And it's about a 1-year development down there. But these really are an opportunity now for a reasonable price frontline golf property. So there aren't too many around at the moment on the more developed developments. Certainly not with the geography that's so close to the airport. So moving on, let's have a look now at what we're going to be talking about on the north today. And really we're going to be talking about a variety of properties today, from bungalows through to villas and townhouses along the coast, and explain a lot more about the area. But as always, let's talk a bit about Medland to start with, for those of you who have not been on one of these webinars previously. I know during the presentation, of course, you do have a Q&A button there. You can ask questions, and we will aim to answer all your queries. Those that we don't cover during the webinar, we'll come back to you separately. Those of you who don't know about Medland, we are a new build specialist. In fact, we're the largest #1 new build specialist on the Costa. We started back in 2013, so we've had many years, but all of our staff came in, were experienced, having worked for other agents, and really saw the opportunity to develop a business specifically targeting the newly designed, heavily insulated type new build contemporary design properties. But we're not a single country type property. Many of the agents only sell to a limited number of nationalities. We actually sell across 11 countries now with individual country teams. So the specific team, if you come in from the UK, that you're coming to will be a local language UK speaking team. And that's no different if you're buying from Belgium or Holland or Russia or Spain, or even Spain, because we're seeing a lot more demand at the moment from Spanish people looking to move away from the towns and the cities and come onto the coast. We have 46 staff now, and the point is we do everything in terms of not just selling properties, but we have quite a comprehensive after sales team, and we will literally take the property all the way through to where you can arrive with your suitcase and start using and benefiting from the property. You don't have to be in Spain to have a property fully finished and checked. And there are over 700 developments in the area that we currently cover, from our headquarter building, which is close to Torrevieja. As you can see, a fairly low profile and unassuming building there. Very modern, similar to our property, is a modern contemporary designed location that we work from. As I mentioned earlier on, actually in reality, we don't spend a great deal of time in the office anyway, nowadays with current technology. We cover 350 kilometers of coastline on the Costa, so we start down in Costa Blanca North, which is the furthest point to the north, just sort of, you'll see in a second on the territory map, coming through the ever popular Costa Blanca South areas like Torrevieja and Villa Martin and Playa Flamenca, and all the way down to the borders with Andalusia, coming down towards Mardi Pulpi and Anguilas. Again, we have presented that area on a previous webinar. A quick update on COVID and the effects on COVID. We're currently now running in Spain at around about 4,500 to 5,000 infections a day. And fortunately, the death rate, of course, has dropped substantially. But the vast majority of those infections tend to be in the cities. But the point was that during the actual pandemic itself, the building industry wasn't really affected. I think we lost about 4 or 5 days in total in terms of the builders working. And new projects didn't stop. If you look at the licenses that have been granted, they still carried on as normal. So did the demand, and so has the finance, etc. At the moment, again, there is another webinar that we did where we talked about mortgages and the rates and the process. We have very, very low finance rates in Spain still. We're on 1.25% and some very good fixed rates offers. But the net effect of COVID meant that people were not coming to buy, and therefore the number of key ready properties has increased. And what developers are doing is offering not so much discounts, but more bundles in terms of extras on these properties. Now, there also are some discounts on some new build properties. I'm not going to hide that, unlike many other agents who seem to continue to say the market hasn't been affected by COVID. It absolutely has. But for those people that are willing to travel, there are certainly a lot more bargains out there than there were previously. But we haven't seen the impact on the resale market or the new build market when it comes to the core prices. We still have closed borders in Valencia and Murcia. There is a limited window open during December where people can go and visit their family, and the police will be checking and do check that you are on a recognised visit. In our particular industry, we are allowed to travel because we're travelling on business, and so therefore we can go, if we have clients over, between the various provinces. And aside from that, you're not allowed to travel outside because the areas around the Costa Blanca really are the beaches of Madrid. And if you consider that areas like Madrid have the highest rates of infection, quite sensibly what the Spanish government have done is brought in measures to stop that spreading down around to other areas. But in our particular area, we have some of the lowest rates of COVID infections and deaths in Spain. I looked at the Torrevieja, in particular, figures of the surrounding area only the other day, and I think we had 14 infections in the last 14 days and 1 death. And the number of people we have in ICU units in the hospitals locally is comparatively small. But it's business as usual. If you visit the bars, if you visit the restaurants, apart from the curfew that we have, and we have a curfew at the moment, which comes in at 12 midnight and runs through to 6 a.m. and the reduced capacities in terms of, I think it's 30% inside and 50% outside. It really is business as usual. Areas like the Boulevard or the Denia Boulevard, which is the large shopping centre, are carrying on pretty much as normal. We have no shortages. There is one thing, however, that we do have in the region, and that is that it is compulsory to wear masks both inside the building and in public areas. They also brought in some new COVID testing rules quite recently. If you are arriving in Spain by air or by sea, and not crossing over from France or arriving in France as a land border, you do have to have produce a negative test result, which is dated and timed 72 hours before arrival. That can either be one of the two different swab type tests, the PCR test, which I know it takes about 48 hours to get the results back on, or the newer TMA test, which you normally get within 24 hours, and have a fit to fly certificate. You already have to fill out the QR code, or fill out the arrival documentation, which generates the QR code. And there are many mail order type companies offering these test kits. Our suggestion is you need to return all of them 5 days prior and return them at least 72 hours before the journey to ensure you get the fit to fly certificate. There is no testing at Spanish airports, contrary to some of the press reports that we've seen recently. Also in the UK, we understand they are reducing the number of days quarantine now by taking a test at 5 days, and they will accept the fast type tests. And one thing we do offer for people that are exclusively viewing with Medland is that we will cover the cost of those COVID tests if you are willing to travel. There obviously are terms and conditions associated with this, and your internal salespeople can discuss with you the qualification associated with us picking up the cost, not just for things like viewing trips, which are £99, but also the COVID type testing program that you need to go through. Again, I want to re-emphasize for those people that are willing to travel, we are open as normal, and there are some good properties out there at very reasonable prices now for people that are willing to travel over. One popular misconception, I'm going to come back to Tracy on this one, because I know, Tracy, for the last 4 years you were living in the Costa del Sol.
That's right.
Is that the weather is so much better in the Costa del Sol compared to the Costa Blanca. But as you can see from the graphs there, that isn't actually the case. Is that true?
That's true, yes. It seems to be a little bit of a myth that because the Costa del Sol is further down south, that it would have a very different weather pattern. And I can say certainly and honestly, because I've lived and worked there for over 4 years, that the weather is not different. And in fact, on many days when I'm talking and looking at the weather for clients, it's warmer in the Costa Blanca than it is down in Costa del Sol.
I think later this week, I think we've got forecasts in this area of something like 24, 25 degrees during the day.
Yeah.
And about
fabulous.
15 and 16 of an evening. So
that's right. Yeah.
You know, many years I've lived here, I certainly have, because we have almost a microclimate in this area, as you can see from the next slide. The one thing that is different, the number of days rain they get comparatively, which is much more in the Costa del Sol compared to the Costa Blanca.
Yeah.
But it is a greener area as well, isn't it, Tracy? When you go down, you notice.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that obviously is as a result that they have more rain. So, you know, yeah. If I were looking at buying properties and making a decision on choice purely on weather, I would be buying in the Costa Blanca.
Well, you can see there, we're looking at around about 31 days tracked over previous years in the Costa del Blanca compared to the Costa del Sol 59. But also there, you can see the daytime temperatures. Yeah, we accept it is about 1 degree difference in the daytime and evening temperatures comparatively between the Costa Blanca and the Costa del Sol. But we're going on to Costa Blanca North, which again has an almost slightly different climate. If you go to the area there, which is where you've got the mountains behind you, we will see snow on the mountains there in the winter months. People sort of aim to get a bit surprised about. And again, it's a much greener climate in the Costa Blanca North compared to the Costa Blanca South. So let's look at the Costa Blanca North. I think the biggest difference between the north and the south is that it's an older established resort. I know going back, my first foreign holiday was when I was 16 with mum and dad to Benidorm. Denia in those days were the company used to fly, if anybody remembers them, and they used to take your photographs as you got off the plane and they were waiting for you when you got back to the airport at the end of your holiday. And if we're going to look at initially at places like Denia and Campello and places like that. We're talking there when they started, foreign residents moved into the areas and holidaymakers back in the 60s, very early on. Whereas the areas down where we are, Torrevieja and the surrounding, was much later for the people coming in and moving here to live. But this is the area we're focused on today. So we're going north of Alicante Airport. We're going to look at properties in Denia, Moraira, Finistrat, which encompasses Benidorm, inland at Polop, and El Campello. This is around about 100, well, you see from the next slide, it's about 120 kilometers of coastline. Some of the areas I've mentioned previously. And about 30 minutes traveling roughly from Alicante Airport, an hour and a bit from Alicante Airport to the areas around Denia, but I'll show you that when we go to the maps. Between 1 hour 30 and 2 hour 20 minutes if you're traveling into the new airport in Murcia. But Alicante really is the preferred airport if you're coming into the Costa Blanca North. But what it has as an advantage is some much more advanced transport links compared to the south. In the south, we tend to rely much more on the buses to come down from the airport. In the north, we do have trams and trains, which link up to the main railway station in Alicante. And I had somebody buy, for example, in Villajoyosa recently, because they can jump on the tram into central Alicante and go up to Madrid and Barcelona, and actually worked in their particular case in Madrid. So it's a very easy run for them to get on the train in Madrid, come into Alicante, and then on the adjoining connection with the tram from Alicante down to their property in Villajoyosa. It's a much more diverse range of activities and also the environment itself. Here you can have sea and mountain views. Many of the properties are much more elevated, certainly compared to the Costa Calida, as you'll see from the previous webinar, which is incredibly flat. And there are a lot of things to do in the area, lots of golf, lots of theme parks and water parks, plus of course the obligatory blue flag beaches along the coast. The difference, however, between the Costa Blanca North and the Costa Blanca South and the Costa Calida is the prices of the properties. Costa Blanca North is the most comparatively expensive place of the three zones that we cover. Costa Calida, which is less developed, is the lowest priced area. In the middle, you have the areas around Orihuela Costa, middle price, and coming down to the Costa Blanca North, the higher prices. And this is only for one real reason, and that is the price of a property is only ever based on the price of the land. The more expensive the land, the more expensive comparatively the property. Therefore, cost of building the property is the same as in any other area. We were talking about some bank properties on the golf seminar, for example, in the Costa Calida, coming in at 79,000 euros and 120 to 140 for an apartment, new build. Up here, we're starting at about 170,000 euros for an apartment. Townhouse-wise, 190 to 200, and villa-wise starting at 250. But a villa at 400,000 euros typically in the Costa Blanca North would be nearer 300,000 euros in the Costa Blanca South and 270 maybe in the Costa Calida, purely based on the price of the land. We know that the Costa Blanca generally is an incredibly healthy environment. It's not just the food, it's the weather, it's the people who talk about suffering with things like arthritis. No, they suffer far less in our particular regions because it's a much drier climate. And it is recognized by the World Health Organization as the second healthiest place in the world, behind California. We do average 300 days of sunshine a year, and in the Costa Blanca North specifically, there are around about 14 golf courses. One I've already spoken about today. And brilliant food. Let me say the prices of the food and menu of the day for 7 to 10 euros, you can go out and eat very cheaply. You can shop very cheaply. But in the Costa Blanca North, it's also a lot more about the culture, the history, and the architecture. We still have the white walled towns. And of course, it's a very, very popular holiday resort. We're going to go on to talk about places like Benidorm later on. But there is still a very good opportunity for rental income. in this particular area. So let's start in Denia. What we're going to do is to show the travelling distance and show the information for the particular resorts themselves. And Denia probably is the farthest point along the coast where we offer properties. It's around about 104 kilometres from Alicante Airport to Denia. The nice thing now is that the main motorway, which is the AP7 that you see on the map there, is now free. They've removed all the tolls from that motorway. So it's a very quick and easy route. You'll see the little kink at the end there. It's because if you follow the motorway around to get into Denia, you can go straight along the coast road, the N332. But this is quite a twisty, turning route if you're going to do that. A lot quicker to just run the extra route around the motorway. I'll show you a local map and so you can see in more detail the area around Denia, and this will also bring in the whole of the Costa Blanca. You just have to wait a couple of seconds for it to load up. So this is the whole of the area that we're talking about today. Down here, you start down here, which is the airport, which is just down there. This is the motorway route that I was talking about. And today we're going to be visiting the area around La Nuncia, the area around Benidorm itself, the area just here where you see the green. And at the moment we're up here in Denia, the port of Denia. And that's one thing it's really famous for, which we'll cover during this conversation. So, as I mentioned earlier on, Denia is a port town. Back in the 60s, it was one of the first areas where the population started moving to. The vast majority of properties that we are talking about in Denia, which are close to the beach, will be apartment blocks, and they're going to be featuring an apartment block. But I mentioned earlier on that you still get the classic towns in these areas, and you still get the streets. In the Costa Blanca South, a lot of the developments or the commercial areas that we talk about tend to be in commercial centres. They tend to build one large centre or multiple centres where they then house the bars, the restaurants and the facilities. In the Costa Blanca North, there's a lot more which is based in what we would almost call a classic high street. And that's what one of the big differences between the North and the South. And we're going to be looking at some apartments here which are 55 metres from the beach. So this is an apartment block called, a development called Denia Beach. In terms of the beaches in the Costa Blanca North, Denia specifically, you will find that the northern beaches, the beaches north of the town, and this particular development is around about 3 kilometres in the centre of the town, are sandy, and the southern beaches tend to be more stony. There are a lot more coves and nice, quieter places to visit than the tourist beaches. You'll come down and you'll have the rocks that surround a nice cove. There is a range here of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. Again, some key ready options available, starting at €162,000 for the 1 bedroom property. Again, they're built on a complex that has its own pool and gardens, as you can see there. And you can see from the aerial photography that we've done there, the proximity to the beach. All of the properties also include their own underground parking. It is a gated community, so only people that are coming onto the complex itself. And unusually here, they've gone for natural grass in the environment. So there is a degree of a community there with nice trees and palms and gardens. And here you're going to see, and you can see real show houses. These are built properties. So you're not looking at rendered graphics and bits and pieces. This is a real site that you can visit and see finished properties. One of the things that we always talk about at this point is the cost of buying a property, but also the cost of owning a property. In Spain, there is a well-developed system which is managed by the community system. In Spain, you pay a community fee. You have to have a professional management company and you pay a community fee that covers all of the aspects of the development. Your gardens, your communal swimming pools, and basically everything within that environment, the cleaning of the environment, the cleaning of the car parks. On this particular development, you're going to pay between 80 and €100 a month for your community fee. We normally know up front pretty closely how much, even on new developments, that community fee is going to be. Your other costs associated with the property are your rates, or your IBI, or your SUMA, as they call it in Spain. And on this particular property, you're going to pay around about €350 a year. Not a month, a year. That's to cover your policing, your rubbish collection, your local facilities. Last but not least, if you are a non-resident, you will pay a non-residence tax equivalent to a percentage of the value of the property. In this case, a property of around about €200,000 would be a couple of €100 per year. And the non-residence tax will not change as a result of Brexit. It's always applied. It's always applied at the same rate, and they can't differentiate or won't differentiate between a British person owning a property and a person from another nationality. So that will continue as normal. However, if you have a villa with its own pool, then you don't pay any community fee. I've got a question here associated with the prices that I mentioned earlier on between the two areas. Somebody with a budget of 100,000, no, you won't. Certainly, we can't offer properties in the Costa Blanca North at €100,000. We can on the Costa Calida, however. Again, if you look at the presentation that we did on the Costa Calida and also on the Gulf, we had properties there starting at €79,000. As far as the Costa Blanca North is concerned, it is a more expensive area, unless, of course, you're looking at a smallish apartment, maybe in Campello or the surrounding area. So next, Moraira.
This is my favourite spot, Roy. I do have to say this is my favourite, or one of my favourites. Beautiful old town. Yes.
Moraira is a beautiful town. I'm looking forward to next year because I do go to a specific hotel in Moraira and they've just completely refurbished it. You know, it was a hotel previously where they didn't even have air conditioning in the rooms. It was just in a unique location looking out across the beach, and you'll see in a second a particular image of that location. But again, you're looking at an hour and just over the hour. In Moraira, there are still plots. There is still the ability to have a villa with a sea view. So a lot of what we do in the Moraira area with some of the larger developments is that we will find a plot of land, or the developer will find a plot of land, and you can design and have specifically a completely custom built villa in that plot. And this view is literally from the hotel that I would normally stay in Moraira up on the hill. As you come down the front and along the promenade. Lots and lots of bars and restaurants. Moraira can be a bit quieter, certainly in this area, in the winter months, because it is predominantly a holiday area. However, if you come inland at Moraira, then that becomes a lot more residential. This is the shopping centre. This is La Marina Shopping Centre, which is smack bang in between Denia and Moraira. Again, this is the example of one of the commercial centres I mentioned earlier on, where you'll find your normal high street stores in Spain, your Zara's and your... And we're going to now look at a 3-bedroom, 4-bathroom detached villa, which is 2.8 kilometres away from the beach, but has sea views in an elevated position up on the hill. One of the big areas of Moraira is an area called Combra del Sol. Now, some of you may or may not have heard of that specific area, but it's also pretty residential, and it has a very, very good English fee-paying school, the Lady Elizabeth School. It's been on TV many times. And Lady Elizabeth, you pay something like €3,000 a year to have somebody who is not a boarder at that particular school. This is a key-ready property. We always talk in square meters, and it's always difficult to understand meterage in terms of a property. But putting it very simply, if normal apartment, what you've seen previously, 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, would be around about 65, 70 square meters internally, and normally 25 square meters externally. That's a typical apartment. A normal 3-bedroom villa, 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, would be about 120 square meters on a 200 to 300 square meter, coming in at a price between 250 and 300,000 euros. This property is actually 175 square meters internally. It's got an 800 square metre plot around it, and it has an associated price of 795,000 euros. Remember, in Spain, the key point is outside space. We live outside. We have such good weather even at this time of year that it's still possible to barbecue and sit out and enjoy the sunshine. So always remember your outside space. In the case of this particular villa, you've got 100 plus square meters of roof terrace without the 835 square meters. Another question we've had come in is about the pools. Well, really, the nice thing about buying off plan is you decide on the size of the pool and also against the location. If you are close to a beach, then maybe the pool becomes less important in terms of the size of the pool. A typical pool on the villas I talked about is a 6x3. In this particular case, it's a 9x4 pool on this particular villa. But if you've got the size of the garden to allow it, if you're buying off plan, you can really have as large a pool as you want. Remember, however, pool maintenance. Remember, the larger the pool, the greater the capacity of the water, and therefore the more the maintenance will be. But an average swimming pool contract, excluding consumption of electricity and water, that's for a guy to come once a week or once every fortnight during the winter, once a week during the summer, is around about 100 euros a year. You don't pay, I mentioned earlier, on any community fees on an detached villa. And what you would pay out in community fees really is what you pay out in pool maintenance. And one really strikes off the other in terms of the ongoing cost. Next, we're going to be going to Finistrat and Benidorm. Now, Benidorm gets a lot of bad press, maybe as a result of the TV program, I don't know. Really, Benidorm is a very, very, very popular area, not just for holidaymakers, but also for people that are coming and buying investment properties for rental and to live. But when we talk about Benidorm, we're talking about specifically here an area called Finistrat, which looks onto Benidorm. And we're talking the shortest run there and the easiest commute that you could get in terms of getting from the airport down to the coast. As I said to you before, my first ever holiday was in Benidorm back in 1971, I think it was, when I was 16, with mum and dad. And it's a place we go and visit, myself and my wife, fairly regularly, just for a weekend away. But if we go to Benidorm, we tend to stay in a place called Altea, which I'll come to in a second, which is just outside of Benidorm, because you've got beautiful villages. You've got places like Albia, Altea, just outside of Benidorm, where it's just a completely different world. And places like Finistrat up in the mountains, which is where these properties we're going to be talking about today are based. But in the surrounding area of Finistrat and Benidorm, you've got the water parks, you've got Terra Nitica, you've got Terra Nature. So you've got within close proximity lots for the family to do, lots of activities for people to do, and lots of activities that are attractive to renters if you are looking at investment properties. So it really does encompass many, many different aspects. And places like this is a town called a medieval town in the mountains called Guadalest, with a blue lake sitting down below it. And you can go there and you can get the electric powered boat and do a tour of the lake down there, and then the tour of the medieval city going up and looking over the mountains. It's absolutely beautiful. And then within close proximity to that, you have the waterfalls, the Algar. Again, you can go on a warm summer day and swim in the falls. I think it's about €4 to go into the falls, with a very, very good restaurant at the base of the falls, and the caves in Boscar. So going into the countryside is something that your average, I suppose, visitor to Benidorm doesn't necessarily consider. And even going down to Villa Yayosa, which is the town to the right of there with the coloured houses, and the history of the coloured houses is such that they painted them so because it was such a large fishing town, so that when the people were returning with their catch, they could see their own town and navigate using the different coloured houses. And even today, the colour that those people can paint those houses is controlled within the local bylaws. You can't just suddenly decide to paint one pink that was originally blue, for example. The other thing about this area is, again, the shopping. They have a very large shopping mall, which is the La Marina shopping centre, but they're also building one to the right of that now, which is going to be one of the largest shopping retail centres in Europe. Because unlike the UK, as far as retail is concerned, because we didn't have extended shutdown periods, retail is still booming. If you visit Denia Boulevard, which is open from 10 in the morning till 10 in the evening, 7 days a week, as this shopping centre is as well, there's still lots of people who go to retail. Okay, what we don't get is the same percentage of the large department stores. I think the biggest chain in Spain is the English Corte Inglés, which is very busy and is a proper Debenhams and style department store. You don't get the same diversity. You don't get Boots. You don't get, you know, other type products in Spain. They tend to be more specialty shops. But the message here is that retail is alive and well in Spain. So this is a 3-bedroom apartment. If you look at the starting image there, that is the view out from the apartments. These apartments are on the hill. And the area around this is Finistrat. It's a bit strange to explain Finistrat because Finistrat is quite a large area. It encompasses the beaches to the right of Benidorm. It encompasses the area on the hill, which includes Sierra Cortina, which is quite an upmarket resort with villas there costing up to millions of euros. And also encompasses a mountain town. And we're looking here at Seascape. And Seascape is one of the first of the newer style resorts that are being built in this area. We actually have 2 in Finistrat, directly, or 3 in actual fact now, very close to each other. This one is Seascape. Again, we have built properties. People are moving into this development. And the combination here of apartments and villas. And it is a resort. So what I mean by saying it's a resort, it has its own gymnasium, it has indoor and outdoor pools, it has paddle tennis, it has its own bars, it has its own restaurants. It is a complete gated community. Next door to that, we also have Campello, which is the similar facility. And then down the front, we have another one being built as well at the moment, which is Sunny Hills. But this is really the new way of delivering these particular complexes. And this is a complex where the rental income will be very good because of all the facilities, but the community fees still will be very reasonable. Again, here we're looking at between 90 and 120 euros a month for your community fees. Open plan, as always, you know, they integrate the kitchen into the lounge areas, and they're able to do a lot more with the meterage. The reason being the open plan nature of the properties themselves. So Seascape is up and running. We have completions happening on there now. And it's something, again, if you come over, you can view. You can view a show property physically on there, and some outstanding views. I mean, the other key aspect nowadays is the build quality. I mentioned earlier on the insulation. The idea of a modern Spanish property is to keep the heat out of the property as keep the heat in the property. We talk in terms now of things called EPCs across Europe, energy performance certification. The EPC rating on these properties is a B. It means that if somebody is above you, you will not hear the high heel shoes, you will not hear the conversations. The glazing itself keeps the sound out. And one of the normal demonstrations we do when people is here is, it is a construction site, but if you close the doors, you do not hear any of the outside sounds. Mm-hmm. It is claimed
that's
that
what I try to. No, sorry, Roy. I was going to say that's what I try and get across to clients as well. That the quality and the finish of the construction that's going on now is absolutely amazing, and it looks great on the net and everything else. But you can't really truly appreciate it until you're actually here and you see it for yourself. It's very, very different to anything that's ever been going up in the last 10 years. Very, very good standards.
Yeah, of course, the other benefits that you see from new build is you do get a guarantee. The same as you do in the UK. You get a 10-year construction guarantee, you get a guarantee on your snagging, you get 2 years on your appliances. So there are absolute benefits on buying new off plan. And one of the things certainly customer-wise that I get is if you are buying off plan and you cannot wait, you do get the builder's guarantees on any of the payments that you make, But more importantly, you get to design it your way. You pick the colour of the kitchen units. You pick the floor tiles. It's amazing that the lady of the family normally in these situations wants white or blue or green or whatever. And you can have a complete, nowadays with the ceramics and things that the developers are able to offer, you do really get a diversity of materials, which is quite incredible. Also changes if we are selling one of the larger villas, for example. The way they build a Spanish property is different. They don't build the classic original way. They build on concrete pillars. None of the walls internally are supporting walls. So if you do want to change your property, and often our clients do, and lose an ensuite, make it into a dressing room, or go the other way around, or have a separate kitchen as opposed to an open plan type kitchen, it's very, very easy to do that, not normally for any additional cost. Polop is next. I always say it's a bit unfortunate, the name Polop. It's not the most, doesn't really trip off the tongue particularly well, but we encompass the areas here of Polop and Lenuncia. But people think this is out of the way inland. It's not. It's really only a short distance inland from the properties that we've shown you a few minutes ago. We're talking here about, it's about 60 kilometers or 50 minutes or so from Alicante airport. But in reality, it's only about a 10 to 15 minute drive from the beaches. And the beaches in this particular case being certainly, which is one of my favorite areas of Spain, and it's where I go and stay hotel-wise very often. And we're coming down to that part of the coast to be a family owner, and that is Albia and Altea. Now, Altea is a fantastic town. Altea is the white-walled, narrow streets where you climb up the stairs and go up to the cathedral, with incredible views out over the Bay of Alicante. In Altea each year, they have one of the largest firework displays in Europe. It's an incredible event. The fireworks go on for more than 30 minutes. And this year, when I went to the display, I did something slightly different in that I actually went into Benidorm and got one of the tourist boats, and we actually watched the display from out at sea. And that was really something quite incredible. So this is the town itself of Albia, and this is literally a 10-minute drive away from the next property that we're going to. Now, this is what commonly you would call in Spain a bungalow. And it's probably one of the most popular styles of property that we sell. And a bungalow is where you have a 2-story apartment block, ground floor with a garden, top floor with a roof solarium, where that roof solarium is normally the entire size of the property. Polop, because of the cost of the land, is very well priced as an area. You do have local commercial facilities on site, so you do have a complex there which has a supermarket, but you can very easily come down to the town of Lenuncia, or come down to Benidorm or Altea or Albia, or into Polop itself, where there's a vast range of bars and restaurants and facilities. With this particular property, we're looking at various options. In actual fact, there are both a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom option for the same price. The difference between the two is that if you go for the 3-bed option, what they do is they remove they increase and add a bedroom downstairs and decrease the size of the kitchen. If you go for the 2-bed option, they open the kitchen up to a much larger lounge and also lounge and kitchen area, and move the kitchen around so it comes completely no walls. Open plan again, very high quality spec and build. Price now with all of the appliances and the air conditioning built in, starting at 175,000 euros. And here with a heated community swimming pool, where the community fees here will come in at something like 50 euros a month. And again, because of the land and because of the number of properties associated with a particular development, they are able to reduce costs. With all of the properties, you can rely on our after-sales service to do as much or as little for you as you actually require when it comes to things like furniture packs. But we do go in and we check and we make sure the property that we're actually delivering to you is to the specification. Just to answer a question we have here on buying fees. We always say to allow between 13 and 14% on top of the property prices for your purchasing costs. It's 10% for VAT on a new property or property transfer tax on a resale second-hand property, and the balance of the other 3 to 4% to cover all of your other costs. If you allow that amount, that will be comfortable in terms of a buying cost. And properties are never priced by any agent with the buying fees included. This is a roof solarium. If you use the roof solarium correctly and the mountings, again, as I mentioned earlier on, in this particular property, as with many others, you will get views of the mountains and of the sea. In this particular property, there you can see that's looking out over towards the Bay of Altea. Now, in this particular area of Polop, we not only have these apartments, but we also have villas starting at just over 200,000 euros, an area called Polop Hills, again based looking out over the old town, over the mountain, and over the sea. So there's a lot of choice in Polop in terms of the types of properties. Very, very reasonable prices. An area to consider if you're looking at the north. And sitting in Polop again, if you go to the rear where the properties are, the mountains, you will get snow on the mountains in the winter months. But not an area that people necessarily consider, but certainly is one that should be on the list to look at. Right, last but not least, we're going to an area that is another area that I really enjoy visiting. I really enjoy visiting because of the diversity of the food and the quality of the beaches, and that's El Campello. It's also the closest area as far as the traveling from the airport is concerned. In actual fact, El Campello, as I mentioned earlier on, is directly on the tram line that runs from central Alicante. Really was a sleepy fishing town. And then all of a sudden, the tourist industry found it, and you can see from the images there, it suddenly exploded, but it tends also to be more of a summery type thing, although facilities remain open all year. But unusually here, what we have is a developer building some villas which are in close proximity to some beautiful beaches. We're going to look at a villa. So as I mentioned earlier on, we are 10 kilometers here from the city of Alicante. 29 kilometers from the airport, because the airport is actually to the south of Alicante city. Very, very good transport links. If you are looking for a relocation opportunity, because again, when you're considering locations, you will consider a location based differently on your particular requirements. Yes, you've got to look at budget, you've got to look at how much money you have to spend on a property, but you've also got to look at what you want to get from that property. And it's often a very different selection if you're looking for something which is ultimately you're going to live in, compared to something which is a holiday home or even an investment. Prior to the pandemic, a lot of people I was selling to were buying villas that they could use for a number of years as a holiday home and then ultimately relocate to. Because when you buy a property, you're going to pay your buying fees, your 13, 14%. When you sell a property, you don't pay that. Your only real expense is pay the agent's fees. It's the incoming buyer that pays all the completion. So if you can push up your budget, buy a property, if you are considering retirement later on, that is more of what I would call your own front door. In other words, not necessarily apartment block. Consider doing that, because again, it's much cheaper to buy it now. And of course, we would hope to see that the investments, once we get this pandemic thing out of the way, to increasing in price, because unusually now, the British people, the UK people, for the last 6 months have no longer been the biggest buyers in Spain. The Scandinavians, nothing will be affected in terms of the people buying from the Scandinavian group companies, from Belgium, from Holland, and we've seen a massive increase in Spanish people, as I mentioned earlier on, looking to move from the towns and cities down to the coast, and also French people. People are reevaluating their lifestyles off the back of this pandemic. So Campello, another fishing port. Predominantly here, as you can see from the blocks, the properties closer to the coast have tended to be apartment blocks. But not in this case. In this case, we're going to be looking at a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom detached villa. Now, I'm excited to say that in this particular case of this property, this week we opened, or they opened the show house. People that are coming over to view can actually physically see the finished property. This is a 3-bedroom, and I mentioned earlier on, 3-bathroom detached villa with a pool at 200 and just under 300,000. However, the 300,000 euros currently will include everything. That's your furniture, that's your air conditioning, that's your white goods, that's everything encompassed. From Medland, by the way, because this is the deal that we have, not necessarily other agents have. This is how we're pricing this particular villa at the moment. So pretty standard size pool here. We mentioned earlier on 6x3, 6x4, 7x4. You know, you really can vary the size of the pool. It's also the law in Spain on these types of properties that you have to have off-street parking. And you have to have your garage there, your drive there, and your entrance coming onto the property and your parking off the street. Whether you use that parking, that's entirely up to you, but when they obtain planning and when they build these properties. Even though properties tend to be next door to each other, they still operate with a lot of privacy in the directions they look out on the properties and the fences. And you can see there, nice open plan lounge, leading onto the kitchen. Here, lots and lots of space. And the other thing we do is the very high ceilings. You get a lot of room, you get a lot of space within the properties themselves. I'm a great lover of breakfast bars and not necessarily dining tables inside of the properties. Because you have doors that open out onto a garden, and therefore it's much easier, in my view, to use the outdoor living space with a good cover over, rather than necessarily using lounge for your dining space. Now, a couple of stools and some nice outside furniture, good quality outside furniture, gives you the optimal use of the outside space. In the old days, I used to remember what they would do is they would put, not so much in Spain, but certainly in the UK, undersized furniture into properties, with the illusion that properties were larger. Doesn't happen anymore. These particular properties you're looking at today, it's real size, it's real double beds, it's real single beds. Other things nowadays incorporate into the properties are, they've had to change, for example, for energy performance, the way that they heat the water. We now use what they call aerothermic boilers, which use the natural hot air to heat the water rather than purely relying on electric, subsequently increasing the energy efficiency and reducing the money you pay. And underfloor heating in the bathrooms. The main heating and cooling, however, is delivered in these properties, as with all of them, by air conditioning. So in this particular property, we've got 107 square meters of internal space, and it's on a 220 square meter plot. Again, you wouldn't here pay any community fees because you don't have a community. And the only fees you would pay here would be your IBI or SUMA. In this particular area, around about 500 euros a year. Re-emphasize, not a month, a year. Build quality wise, this is a really, really good quality build. It's a good quality constructor that Medland dealt with for many, many years. They're building properties not just here, but we also have this property and some other properties in the area of Benihoffer, which is close to Casada and was featured in one of the previous videos. El Campello, the town I mentioned earlier on, lots of history, lots of places. There's a very clear, beautiful blue waters, and a combination here of stony and sandy beaches. The promenade on there runs for miles. I think it's about 2.5 to 3 kilometers there. Promenade with the bars and the restaurants. But a very popular Spanish holiday town. If you are looking to move away from the more heavily populated areas where there is a higher percentage of Brits and other nationalities, then for you, El Campello could be an absolutely ideal location. It is very Spanish, in fact. You mentioned Denia and Campello and other resorts along the coast here. They tend to be much more Spanish than potentially Benidorm would be, or even places like Playa Flamenca and Villa Martin, which are in the south, which is where I live. That's the end of the properties and the areas today. I hope from the range of properties we've shown you something, because We have, as I mentioned earlier on, more than 700 different developments on our website. There's quite a lot of choice. So what's next? You've been introduced to one of the internal sales teams today. And they're there to help you. The idea of the internal salespeople is they will take your requirements and advise, but you really can't understand anything until physically you come and look at the properties. As Tracy mentioned earlier on, you can look at any number of photographs, and clever agents can shoot photographs in certain ways. And we say, look, it's all about the location. It's all about visiting. It's all about feeling initially comfortable in an area. When we offer our viewing trips, the first day we would spend on a viewing trip is actually looking at areas rather than even necessarily looking at photographs, looking at properties. The first thing to do is to visit our website. On our website, you can search by area, you can search by property, you can search by budget. We don't just provide information on the properties, we also provide a great deal of information on the particular locations and the viewing trips or the videos sitting there. So I would encourage you to go to the website and have a look at some of the properties. You contact us.
Can I just add one little thing there, Roy?
Of course you
that all of us in Medland have lived and worked in the area for in excess of 10 years. So we're actually giving you some informed advice. We know where we're looking at, we know what we're talking about, and we listen. So I think that's a very important point to make, that we all have lived and worked here for many years so that we can give some good advice.
I think it is, because I mean, so I see so many companies that are UK based selling foreign properties. When you do the shows, I know we won't see the exhibitions this year necessarily on it, or next year. And you probably know I'm one of the presenters at the place in the show and exhibitions. I'm one of the guys that gets up on the stage there and talks about the geography and the properties and everything. So many of these companies have never been to the area. So many of these companies have never experienced the area. They can't talk with any authority about the area. Also remember, on some of the websites, they estimate that 30% or more of all of the properties that are advertised are not real. They go onto websites to encourage people to make inquiries. And be very careful if you are coming over on a viewing trip and look at properties generally, that you make it very clear the properties that you want to see in advance. You know what you're viewing and you know what's available, especially in the current climate. But as I say, you can contact us via the website, via email, via telephone, via WhatsApp. And we're also happy to do individual Zoom conference calls with you, run through properties in the area. Nowadays, the 360 tour is becoming the in thing. I'm not a great believer necessarily on people buying virtually. It's something that I think if I was making that decision, it's probably the wrong thing to say on a webinar like this. I would want to physically come and look. Because although I can walk you through a property and walk you around the area, and we have sold properties on this basis, I'd want to come and see, feel, touch, and understand a lot more about the property. I'd also want to negotiate the deal as well. I think by physically being there, I'm sure that I'm sitting in front of somebody with the necessary funds. I'm in a more powerful position, shall we say, than doing it remotely. Mm-hmm. We are still continuing to offer the viewing trips. £99 give you the flight and the hotel. There are terms and conditions associated with that. But we also want your feedback. We do have webinars. We have a range of webinars that we've carried out already. In fact, there have been 6. If you visit and when you receive an email after this event, there are 6 ones there. We talk about golf courses, we talk about currency, mortgages, the buying process, and even the dreaded word Brexit and what's going to happen after that. There is a question here also that I want to answer at this point on the 90-day rule, just for absolute clarity. At the moment, I don't have a crystal ball. It's difficult, obviously, to find out. We do know, as far as buying as a holiday maker, the actual buying process and taxes, etc., after the end of December, there is absolutely no change. The buying fees are the same, the letting rules are the same, aside from expenses, which I don't arrange and we'll talk about another separate event. But yeah, it's an NIE number, the same as you've always had, and we covered it again on a previous webinar when we looked at Brexit. But the 90-day rule will come into effect, and that means that during any annual period, you are only allowed to stay in Spain for 90 days in a continuous run, and then you have to return for 90 days. or 1 month, 1 month. It means that the maximum time you can stay in a Schengen country, that includes Spain, France, Italy, that includes cumulative numbers, is 180 days a year. Now, people seem to forget that it's always been the rule in Spain that if you stay in Spain more than 183 days in any 12-month period, you should become a resident. So for your average holidaymaker and investor, the effect of the 90-day rule will be minimal. If you're coming out on your 6 weeks holidays, or you're looking to invest, and say maybe invest now for something in later life you're going to move out to. They've changed the rules now in terms of residencia. And when I got my residencia, it was really a case of just going down to the local police station, probably the same as Tracy, and saying, here I am, and this is my passport, and this is where I'm living, and here's a copy of my deeds, and there you are, you're a resident. That was it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, and I've just applied for my new TIE, as they call it, which is the photo residency card. If you're coming in as a new resident, you have to be able to prove that you can afford to live in the country. You have to show savings. I think 6,000 euros per individual, 9,000 euros, sorry, per individual, and 12,000 euros for a couple in the bank. Or you have to have an employment contract. You also have to have private medical cover yourself, because until you are a resident, you can't obtain a national insurance number and sign on to the medical system that exists in Spain. Which, by the way, I know Tracy will testify to from practical experience, is excellent. So the hospital system, the medical system, the checks, and the modernness of the hospitals, and the much reduced waiting times in Spain.
That's a key thing, Roy, that, you can still actually go in, get an appointment or go in somewhere within like 2 to 3 days. And as you say, I've had my own experiences in both the private and the national system over here. And I do have to say it's very, very good. Certainly a lot better that's being offered in the UK at these days.
So yeah, the medical system, generally the lifestyle, the whole health thing is far, far better. I certainly have no plans to return to the UK anytime soon. I'd like to get back to see the family, which is a bit difficult at the moment. But aside from that, it's business as usual. I'm sure we'll be going out and eating, and we're all going out and eating and exercising and doing all the normal things that we do in our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
But contact us, ask us. We're more than happy to help people out when it comes to the property. And here you have a couple of contact details and a contact info. You can ring us directly. We have no problems with speaking to people regarding the country that we actually love. That's putting it down.
Yeah.
Putting it in simple terms. Now, we also need your feedback. I mean, if you're looking, we are planning some more webinars. The next series will now be after Christmas. We're going to be looking at employment in Spain. Hopefully, by the time we do the next ones, we'll have a bit more clarity on Brexit and what some of the other associated terms and conditions are, with things like pet transfer, for example. I know that's a particular burning issue at the moment, the pet passport system. Working, again, looking at the rules and regulations around self-employment. Pensions, again, we don't believe there'll be any effect, but we obviously don't have the crystal balls. But we are here to not just sell properties, we are here also to provide you with enough information such that you can make an informed decision on where you want to live, and to explain to you our lifestyles, explain to you what makes us tick and what makes the areas tick. An individual location will be right for some people and not for others. It's a very, very serious decision, but it should be based not looking at pictures on a website. It should be based on experiencing the areas and understanding the location. Don't get trapped into a situation. If I had €1 for everybody that I've toured and sold a property to, who came over and said, I want to buy that 2-bedroom apartment in Playa Flamenca, and actually bought that 2-bedroom Playa Flamenca, came over to view in the first place, I'd be a very rich man. Rarely actual property. And I'm sure Tracy will testify to this in her years of experience as well.
Yeah.
The property that they came over to view in the first place. So come over and try it. If you're a golfer, we've got outstanding golf courses in the area. Reasonably priced properties on golf courses. Tracy, anything else you want to add for the audience before we say our normal goodbye?
Not really. Obviously, I know there are some people watching this that I'm already in touch with. And just one final note on working with Medland and what we do. I actually love my job. We make dreams come true. And that's what is so amazing for us at the end of the day. When we've got the client, they're here, they've found their home, and they are ecstatically happy, and we've helped to make that happen. So that's my job, and I'm very happy to do it.
So hopefully, if you've got any other questions, mail me, phone me, send me a carrier pigeon. It's not a problem. That just means to say thank you very much for attending the webinars. Thanks for your input there, Tracy. And hope to see you all in Spain soon.
Yes, please, when we're allowed.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.